Hi, everyone. Welcome to our GW 2020. I'm Rita Mittal, and I'm the host tonight. And my speaker friend today is Angel Lacret. He will be playing a video for us because this webinar has been organized by me for GW 2020 for encouraging global entrepreneurship around the world. So, Angel, if you don't mind, could you play the GW and the InMark video?
Sure.
Welcome to today's InMark Immersive Insight webinar. We are so happy to partner with Global Entrepreneurship Week to bring you today's session. Before we begin, we would like to show you a brief video about who we are. Let's get started.
Thank you, Angel. Okay, I think we can start. Okay. Well, welcome today, everyone. I have with me a guest who is from Cobuild Lab. And the short introduction to this company is that, have you ever wondered about an idea that you would like to see it come true? And something that you would like some developer, because you don't have the engineering skills, but you have a great idea. And I think Angel is going to tell us how we can go from that idea stage and get a product together, and they will help us build our product and test it out in the marketplace, and then how to bring it out to the market and help you throughout. So Angel, why don't you take us through the process and tell us what kind of software or hardware that you build, so we have an idea as to what the end product is all about.
Yeah, thank you, Rita. Thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to take some time to explain in this. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is going to be about product development, and specifically customer-driven product development. Again, my name is Angel Lacret, as Rita said. I'm the founder of Cobuild Lab. We're gonna explain a little bit more about that during the presentation, but I think that we can start now.
Mm-hmm.
Good. First of all, who is Cobuild Lab? We partner with non-technical entrepreneurs and industry experts to build web and mobile SaaS products. Basically, we are a software development company specialized in building early stage products, MVPs, as some of you should know the name of these early stage products. We are a company who has staff like all over America, North America, and South America. And this is a brief introduction about myself. I'm the founder and chief of product development at Cobuild Lab. I'm a software engineer, a computer engineer. Have over 15 years doing web and mobile applications, and actively participating in some great software challenges in a couple of big industry software. I started like many years ago in the enterprise world. Around 7 to 8 years, I switched into the startup world. I was hired by a company, to build some new products, and it kind of like stick to me, and that's what I've been doing and dedicating since then. I founded this company 3 years ago. We have been working in Miami since then. We have a couple of customers either way in San Francisco and in New York too. And we're here happy to help you. We also host a small developers community in downtown Miami. So if you're ever around and you're a developer, has some sort of interest, you're welcome to join us. This is my co-founder. He's not here today for this presentation. His name is Alan. He's also co-founder of Cobuild Lab. He works on product management at Cobuild Lab. He has a lot of background also in product design and marketing, mostly UI UX design, and he has been helping me for a couple of years already with product management and ownership. Okay, so let's talk about what we came here to discuss, right? Customer-driven product development. So in today's presentation, we're gonna talk about different parts of this process. Specifically, we're gonna talk about a little bit about what is product development, just to give you a little bit of context of what we need to talk about. What is precisely customer-driven product development and how this apply to tech products. We're going to talk about also a little bit about MVP development. For the ones you didn't know about the term MVP, is called minimum viable product. This is when you're building like a large piece of software. You usually don't go like all the way in planning, like building everything. You just reduce to the minimum amount of value that you want to deliver faster, and that is what is commonly known as MVP, right? So remember at the beginning. Yep.
Angel, what kind of products are you referring to?
In this specific context, we're talking about software products. That's kind of like our expertise. So whenever you're trying to build like your startup, you usually are trying to solve a problem, right? Many people make the mistakes about trying to create like a big application, like something that is too large and too difficult to build. Like let's say that you, for example, are building like a social network. Let's say that maybe you have some special interest in, I don't know, maybe like bowling or tennis, right? And you're trying to build like a social network around that particular niche that you want to provide services, right? So many people want, when this happened, they try to build like a whole solution. It's like, imagine that you're coming to me saying like, hey, I want it to be like a social network for tennis, and I want it to be like, social posting, comments, video sharing, calling and stuff like that. And that's usually not the way to go, right? Because the bigger the piece of software you want to build, the harder it is, the longer you're going to take to finish that product. And, the more money and more resources are you going to put there before you actually have a product that you want to like test to the market, right? Because one of the key things about creating a startup is you want to build something small, test it to the market, and see if it's actually that someone is going to use and that someone actually needs, right?
So you're trying to say that whatever you do, you test.
Yeah, you test, and you always make sure to build the minimum amount of things to be able to make sure that next step of testing that you're going to do is actually prove something, or it's actually giving you enough information.
So I'll tell you one thing. I had a client who took 2 years. What you're telling me right now is very, very interesting, because I had a client who spent about $200,000 over 2 years building something for brain games. And when I met the CTO at one of the parties, he came up to me and he said, well, I do this. He gave me his card and he said, I'm the CTO. And I said, what are you doing? And then he pitched to me what he was doing. He was trying to get the the age group from 5-year-old to 90-year-old to play the games that he was doing. And I said, you know what, it's too broad. Right away, I'm like, why don't you go for a certain age group? Because as an MVP, like you said, I said, try the small way. Do you think it was the right advice or the wrong advice? How would you go about something like that?
No, I mean, definitely is the right advice. I mean, I have dealt with entrepreneurs like for the last 5 years, right? And one of the key things that I do all the time, and I have validated this with growth managers and with marketing experts, is that you need to push the founders to reduce the scope, right? Because the larger the idea, the larger the market you want to tackle, the more resources are you going to spend, the more time you're going to put together. And usually on early stages, you don't want to like put a lot of resources into something that you don't know if it's going to work. And also, if you have a limited set of resources, you want to use kind of like something that's called like the sniper approach, right? The sniper approach is focusing in solving one small thing, and then you move to solve more pieces of that big puzzle. So even if your vision is really large, you need to, take like baby steps and small steps to start like building a business, building a company around that. And there's a super common example. Of course, before I give you an example, there are like certain use cases where usually it takes a lot of time to build an MVP, right? Like for example, if you're Tesla, like the car company, right? They took a couple of years into building the first car, right? But that's kind of like a different scenario because, there is a lot of money involved. There is a bigger market share involved. There's like a bigger picture. And that's kind of like a 1% of the startups that are out there, right? So you need to be like very careful with that. Another example is, I don't know if you heard recently about Quibi, this video company, video streaming company, right?
Yes.
They put a couple of $1 billion into producing content and small videos for people who are like on the move, right? And they like to say that it was kind of like mostly about COVID hitting, because I think that short video format was more targeted to people who was like commuting and doing similar stuff, and those things were killed with COVID. But I also think that putting $2 billion into something that you think that is going to work is not the best way to go, right? Probably if you have like $2 billion, you want to like spend a couple of hundred millions into testing the idea before you pour all that money into it. And then you work your way through a bigger market, right? And I think that's a perfect example that you cannot go big when you're trying to solve a problem that you don't know if people wants to be solved, right?
Exactly. Go ahead.
So every time that you do that reduction, every time you tell people like, hey, you need to go smaller, you're working that MVP, that small piece of thing that actually generates value for your next iteration, right? And usually people make the mistake about thinking that MVP is just one. Like if you have like a large product, you need to be like one MVP. That's not necessarily the case. You can build like multiple MVPs, like 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever are necessary until you have a product that is actually, producing money, getting users involved, and getting some traction.
Wait, before you start, it is like how you built Facebook. It was something in Harvard where they tried to connect as a network of dating, ladies. But then he did not know today it would have also all the other, WhatsApp and everything. He didn't dream of all that.
Right. That's actually a pretty good example, right? They built it first for a campus. They tested, it worked. Then they start moving to another campuses, and they tested and work. And then they start adding features to monetize, seeing how to get money. But the good thing about this is they started with something that people actually need, right? They started with something really small, something they went viral, something that people were actually going to use. So that's kind of like one of the key things here, right? If you're going to think in solving a problem because you're seeing a necessity and an opportunity, make sure you have the right sniper approach to solve like the micro problem. See if that actually has a value, and then working your way through a bigger picture. Okay, sorry, Rita.
No, I said, now I know what you're going to be presenting, and I'm sure everyone else knows. So let's go on with how you go about helping us.
Right. So yeah, we're going to talk about these 4 points, right? For subjects here, we talk about a little bit of product development. That's kind of like the boring part, right? But we need to understand first what is product development to be able to understand what's customer-driven product development. A little bit of MVP development. We're going to give you some tips about how to go with that for your tech startup. And we're going to see a couple of customer success stories, right? So, and at the end, of course, we're going to have a little bit of a session of QA, to answer some questions, regarding the overall presentation. So a little bit about product development. So before we jump into the definition, this is kind of like the end game of this presentation, right? I'm showing you here an example about one of our customers and how they solve a problem that they have with this. They do some sort of like wellness seminars, right? And they drive people through a process to be able to, you know, become a better version of yourself, right? Improving your life in different sections of your life, right? So before they jump into building an application to solve the worst problem about wellness, right? The first drafted in a piece of paper, they create like a large format, right? They start testing it to people, tweaking it here and there, asking people what they think about, what can be improved, which one are the areas where you actually want to make some difference in your life. And from there, they created this format, which we later transform into a mobile application and something that actually people can use. And now these customers, they have over a couple of thousand users already. They're kind of like a B2B type of product. So it's not kind of like an open application for everyone to be, for everyone to join in and have, but it's kind of like a very good example about how you need to build a product, right? You need to build something small first, even if it's not a high-tech product. It could be like a low-tech product or even a no-tech product. And then you start tweaking it. And once you make sure that you have something in there, then you put the resources, you put the time, you put the money, and you actually build it. Okay, so back to the product development definition. Basically, well, product development in all the areas, you know, not only tech entrepreneurship or software development, is the process of organizing and planning, like how you create a product, how you conceptualize, how you design it, and how you actually take that product to market, that commercialization part of a new product of a service. Very, very broad term, right? Also very broad, you know, process here. You go from concept to engineering to manufacturing to marketing, right? Here the terms like prototyping, like market research, market validation, engineering design, all that process goes here. Of course, you have like one things in one industry and one things in other industries, but this is kind of like a broad schema about how the process of creating a product through this specific process goes, right? Again, you go from ideation to engineering to manufacturing to marketing. So naturally, when you're building like a software product, you think about, right, let's use the same process that everybody's been using for like the last 200 years, right? So how this common product development process work for tech startups, right? So the good thing that of this process within the space of tech startups is that, first of all, every day more and more information is on the internet, right? Globalization has made like technology and education accessible for everybody. So now you have more people around the world with access to internet and information that actually know how to build a product, how to do engineering, how to do manufacturing, to be able to build products, you know, anywhere in the world, right? A good thing also is that with the pass of the years, we got kind of like the boom of software, maybe like 20, 30, like 40 years ago when everybody started like doing software. So the good thing about this for our current situation is that by the day, the cost, complexity, and time of building software product has been decreasing, right? So now more than ever, it's easier to build like a mobile application, build a website, even a web application, a marketplace, an e-commerce, to be able to commercialize like a new product or an idea that you have. Also, it's very common, it has been very common that the software has been successful in almost any industry, right? Fintech, you know, healthcare, you know, logistics, transportation, and that's actually is a good thing, because you usually, if you're trying to innovate or create something new in an industry, you can find like previous success cases that can help you see how those guys were able to navigate within that industry to create something successful. What it hasn't been so good, you know, applying the process of product development for tech startups has been, first of all, there is even though there is a lot of education and material out there to learn how to build something, you still need to have some assistance. You still have to have some sort of education about starting a business, because remember, it's not only solving a problem, it's also starting a business, right? You need to know about legal, you need to know about taxes, you need to know how to manage operations, all that stuff. Misunderstanding of the market. The number one reason why startups fails, like that big 90% about why startup fails, the number one reason why that happens is a misunderstanding of the market. And that can be translated into, I don't know what the people that I'm targeting wants. Or could also be, I know what I'm targeting wants, but I'm just not building the right solution for them. So that mismatch between the problem and solution is the number one reason why startups fails and they go broke. Just because if you spend a lot of money, like again, the Quibi example about $2 billion, you can be like an awesome product, but if no one is going to use it, then you just go broke, just like these guys did, right? Non-validated business models, and this is super important. Usually when you're building a startup, when you're building a new product, you need to get help to be able to understand the best business model that is for your audience, for your product. Usually people also use this too rigid process. And this is also super common on founders, right? Whenever you create a new product, whenever you create a new startup, it's like your child, right? If someone tells you like your child doesn't work okay and you need to change it, you're gonna react like really badly and not pay attention to it, right? But it's also
Angel, I
right?
have to say that I think that is one of the number one problems that I face all the time. Because if I think something is not making sense, and I'm like, they think I probably don't understand it. But the truth is that they're so much in love with their product and their idea, they only go to the people who will validate their idea, but not take the no's. If there are like 100 people saying no to them that I don't get it, they'll go to the 5 that are loving it and they think it's such a unique idea that we're just not getting the concept. And I actually have seen one person fail very badly over 5 years, carrying this child around, and actually has destroyed quite a few things in his life, but still is in love with the child. Um, I can understand exactly that we need someone independent like you to be our partner in our idea, to tell us where the things are right and where the things are not quite right.
Right, and that's super common. I will say like that's also like a really important cause of failing. Sorry, a really important cause of failing for the startups that are not still making money, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of like a breakthrough whenever you're building a new startup that is called like product market fit, right? When you finally found that your business models make sense and you start making some money of some sort of, or accruing some sort of value for your company, right? Before that, I will say like one of the most important causes of failing is, being too rigid, being too stubborn when someone tells you like, this is not working or this is not gonna work, right? Of course, again, like everything, we have exceptions, right? We have also the case of Netflix, right? The founder, like 15 years ago, he was telling everybody like the future of watching movies is going to be streaming over a computer, over a phone. No one believed him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says like, you're crazy, you need to pivot your idea, but he stuck to it. It stuck for like 5-6 years until he reached a point where it would make sense to have that technology, right?
Right.
Of course, those cases are like super rare, right?
Right.
I will tell you, and I will give like 10 times to 1 someone who is like on point to date into solving a problem than betting like a long play with someone who is a visionary or trying to guess how the future is going to be, just because it's a risk game, right? You want to put your eggs wherever the probability is like the highest, right? But again, every rule has its exception. The guys on Netflix, they are like multimillionaires now. The guys on Robinhood were similar. 5 years ago, no one thought about, trading on the stock market for free. And the
Mm-hmm.
guys on Robinhood now, I think that they just filed an IPO and I think they worth more than $10 billion, right? So yes, always there a perception of those rules, right?
Well, think about the Zoom that we are sitting and having our webinar on right now.
Right, all these guys too, you know, and this is kind of like important things, right? You need to understand that your product may make a breakthrough, but you also need to bet for the highest probability of success.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So how all these problems have been solved? For now, we have a couple of frameworks that people uses for building software startups. And some of these are this, right? Like customer development methodology, like fuzzy front end framework, design thinking that is super popular, is super good. The Lean Startup, the book that is like super famous that probably like every entrepreneur must read. From all of this and from some of our knowledge through all these years and from all my experience building startups, we created like this concept that is called the Cobuild process, right? This is something that we actually do internally. We use internally. Very lean, very simple. It's not like a book that you need to read, but it's basically taking what we consider is really important of all those frameworks and being able to put it in a process that someone can follow, and you know, being able to build like piece by piece that product, that startup is going to take you to the next level, right? So let's take a look about a little bit about the Cobuild process, right? Again, we took a couple of concepts of the lean startup, design thinking, and customer development, and we put that whole thing into a process of building a business, being lean, involve technological innovation, and also thinking about always think that you need to have that key factor that is going to give you that exponential growth, right? So if you're building a solution for your company or for something that you need to just fix, and then you think about, hey, this could be helpful for someone else, that's kind of like not the startup think, right? The startup mentality, right? When you're thinking about a startup and building a software, you're thinking about thousands of users, millions of users, like think really big, because that's what actually is going to drive you to success, right? So
So
there
it's
are a
not the
couple of,
corner shop. It's
yep.
it's not your coffee shop at the corner of a street.
Right. Just because, and the reason why I tell you this is not necessarily because that doesn't mean that type of business
That
is going
cannot be
to
a
be successful.
Starbucks, right?
Yeah, it's just that there is different techniques to develop different type of products, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of the Cobuild process, it's kind of like aiming to that exponential growth factor, right? So in a nutshell, the Cobuild process is the process of transforming an idea into a sustainable business through the combination of the lean entrepreneurship, business strategy, technological innovation, and customer development, right? And pay attention to the last part, the customer development, because this is like super important in the presentation that I'm giving you. So we have a couple of principles, right? Again, this has been taken from different methodologies. We're kind of like not reinventing the wheel here. We just are compounding the key factors that we think that it will take you to a success building a software product. First of all, that full loop about build, measure, learn, and this goes along with the MVP concept about, you know, choose the minimum thing, build it, test it, being able to measure the results, and now learn from the results to do the same thing again and again and again, right? Of course, don't be afraid to go back. One may be mistaken. The second principle is until proven, like every statement is an assumption. And we piggyback a little bit into the example you were giving and what we talk about being in love with your child. Again, many people think that if I go to someone who says yes, like my brother or my sister or my son or my father, of course, if I'm pitching to my wife about how I'm changing the world, she's gonna say like, yes, of course, this is kind of like the best idea that I ever heard. But of course, that's not really validation, right? So every statement that is not validated is an assumption. So you need to challenge those assumptions. Whatever validation you get in your process, it is only accepted on exchange of some sort of currency, personal information, testimonials, cash, valuable time. What this means is that for someone to be able to give you like a true opinion about something, you need to take something away from them. That's the only way that they're going to think twice or three times before they give you an answer, right? Because if you're trying to sell me something, before I give you $1 to you, or before I give you $5 to you, I'm going to think about if that's something that I actually need. In the long run, it's faster to build multiple MVPs than actually thinking about building a full solution for a problem that you're trying to solve. Again, we piggyback here a little bit about the MVP approach. Always takes baby steps, small steps. Small steps are better than crushing your complete company just because you're building something that no one wants. A good example here is, I don't know if you remember the case of Instagram. They built first a picture application to be able to locate places. Same thing, they started really small, they started solving a problem, they started to put it out there, it went viral, and then they start pivoting about ways of making money with all those people posting pictures, right? And I guess they did it pretty well, right? In the diagram, this is how the Cobuild process looks like in a model. We have different activities for the validate process, the build stage, and the plan stage. Again, this is how we move from an idea to business. We are not covering here the acceleration part, and that's kind of like one of the key things that I want to mention here. Just because the acceleration is kind of like outside a little bit of our scope as a software developers, this is more like the labor of a marketing expert or a growth hacker or growth manager, right? So I don't want to like step into too many places, right? How the process looks like, and this is all the activities. We got the process of validation, building, and planning. Again, we're leaving out the acceleration process. So for the first stage of validation, we had this problem solution fit. That's the goal. Again, I told you at the beginning that one of the key problems that every startup have is to be able to find that problem solution fit. The problem solution fit is basically in very bare bones is saying, I have a solution for enough people who have a problem, right? And the reason why this is a fit, right, because you may have the solution for a person that has a problem, but one person is not going to create a company, is not going to create a business for you. So you need to have enough people also to be able to provide a solution to that specific problem. We go to a bunch of activities as feasibility, market research, the value proposition canvas. There are tools that are out there that are really important for you to start validating. Then we jump to the phase of building. This is basically, you know that you have a solution. Now you start like building your MVPs to start seeing and gaining traction, from the people that you're actually targeting. Then we have the plan stage. Click it. Then we have the plan stage where we go over the product market fit stage to be able to find and getting enough value from your software product to make sense to be a business, right? When we say value, it could be money. It could be money from sales. It could be money from subscriptions. But value can also be, I'm getting a couple of million visits a day on my website that is doing this X, Y, and Z. Just because now with a couple of million visits, you are able to transform that into money with different business models. Okay, and at the center of everything, and this is like the perfect time to introduce the concept of customer-driven product development, is the process actually that it spans about these three stages, about the validation, build, and plan, to be able to take an idea, becoming a product, and actually commercialize something that is successful, right? We're gonna go a little bit into that, right? Okay, so before we jump into this, I don't know if we have any questions. If we wanna.
I'm good.
You good? You're following there?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, so let's talk about this vision or this technique about doing product development. So when we talk about customer driven, it means that process that you do about building and adding stuff to your product is going to be dominated, is going to be governed by how your customers behave. So plain and simple, the process that you use for building your product, for actually doing product development, is going to be driven by how your customers behave and how your customer give you feedback about your product itself, right? So let's talk about a little bit about that. So where does customer driven product development sits? Between the process of customer development, that is the one that we have to the left. That customer development is when you start like studying your problem, studying your customer and trying to figure out ways to add value to whatever they're doing, right? And the process of product development, this is the part from the right, when you have a small solution and you start adding to the solution to be able to create more value. So again, we have these two big concepts here. Customer development, that is, when you add more things to your solution to be able to provide more value to your customer. And the product development part is when you add more things to the product to also, with the goal of also creating more and more value to your customers. So that's basically that combination, right? That intersection there. So one thing that it works like common here. This is very common. This is from a book called the
Kotler?
No, it's called Breaking the Chance, Breaking the Cash, right? That it basically explains how technical products overtake markets, right? And that is called like the innovation adoption cycle, right? This is basically the description about how your full market for your product is formed, right? So whenever you introduce like a new product to a market, you have these 5 types of customers, right? You first have your innovators. There is usually the people who currently don't have like a good solution for whatever problem you're solving, right? Think about the latest apps that you install, right? Like I have an app that is telling me how I'm sleeping, right? So for me, like a new technique or a new way of measuring my sleep and enhancing how I'm sleeping, I'm an innovator because I will take like anything, right? Whatever you tell me that is gonna fix how I sleep and it's gonna tell me how can I sleep better, I'm gonna take it, because I'm not happy with the current solutions. I'm constantly out there seeking for things to help me, right? That's how innovators works. Of course, a person can be an innovator for certain things, and it could be a different type of user for some other things, like let's say Netflix, right? Or let's say my selection of movies or my selection of entertainment. I only watch like Netflix and HBO because I don't want to look at anything else. I'm like fully overwhelmed for all the type of streaming platforms that are out there, and I just go with a safe solution, right? With the safe thing. So in terms of streaming and entertainment, I'm not an innovator. I'm more like a laggard or more like a lay majority, right? So for you to understand how this works is when you're introducing a new product, the first type of customers you're gonna get are innovators. So you need to clearly understand how innovators work. They take everything. They are okay with your application crashing when you having bugs and problems, but they are okay also being rewarded with saying that they are the innovators, that they are the first theirs. They are the ones who take over the application first. And then you have early adopters, right? Once your product is more stable, once you know that you are solving a solution, then you can start targeting early adopters. There are the people who they are currently using a solution, but they're like open to change into something better, right? I'm going to give you like a clear example. Let's go back to the example that I gave at the beginning about the tennis social network, right? Let's say that these people are using Facebook right now, but there is a segment of all this population that uses Facebook that also play tennis, right? And let's say that they want to post like the scores, the tournament scores when they are getting together to be able to go into a tennis tournament. So that specification, it could be like your early adopters target for your tennis social media because you're creating something that is specific for them. they already have a solution, but the solution, it doesn't fit their needs because they're trying to like post tournaments or post things about tennis, very specific about tennis, and
Mhm.
Facebook, it just doesn't fit to it because it's not built for that, right?
Right. Well,
So
let me take it to the more concrete, because I know this is a innovation and it's all to do with technology. But just to make it a little bit more example with the concrete thing is like a face cream. I mean, you might come out with a new face cream, but then, for wrinkles, but then there are some people who will get the first product that is out with the most shiny testimonials from whoever it is. And then there are the others who are using some products that they're in love with and they're not going to adopt this new product. And then there are some people, other laggards, who will be probably watching 1 or 2 years, probably someone they know, and see how did that new face cream work on the other person before they'd even go into buying a new face cream. Wouldn't be
exactly.
something like
So
that?
exactly. So those people, usually the
They
early
look for the
adopters,
results, whether the wrinkles really went away or are the wrinkles still there after 1 year. So,
right, right. So usually that's kind of like the behavior of the early majority, right?
right,
Also similar when you're normal people when you're buying a car, right? If you're buying a car, you maybe go with the brands that you know that they're good, right? Before jumping into something like more like new, more like maybe like Tesla, for example, right? Back to example of
right,
Tesla.
right.
So Tesla already is like a big brand. They already did a lot of investment and did a lot of strategy into positioning to being a big brand, right? And getting to be a big brand is something like really difficult, right? Like putting a lot of money in branding, doing super excellent customer support.
Mhm.
Make sure that all over the world you have like electric chargers to be able to plug your car because if you're driving a Tesla, you need to plug your car somewhere, right? So that's the type of things that the early majority is seeking, right?
How
So
many miles they'll go, without gas and things
right,
like that.
exactly. So
Mhm.
uh, usually when you're building a startup, you don't care or you don't have to worry about the early majority at least like months away, maybe years away, right? Because the only way that you can touch into those and go to those early majority is basically with branding, right? With positioning, being like a big brand, being recognized by people, right? So
Right.
that's kind of like a different game in the
Mhm.
acceleration part of the world, in the you know kind of like the big market is game, and you don't have to worry about that, but you need to understand that you're going there eventually.
Mhm.
Okay, so now that we understand that, again, we phrase this customer-driven development is that continuous process of growing the customer base of your product, combining the customer development process and the product development process, and making sure that you're targeting your innovators and your early adopters, and you start positioning yourself for targeting your early majority, right? So if you see here, we're not talking about laggards in this part of the curve, just because that's usually not something that is in front of business strategies, right? If you're building probably like Netflix or Facebook, you don't worry too much about the people who's gonna adopt the product last, just because you're not sure that you're gonna get there, right? You need to
Mhm.
focus on your early majority, your branding, getting the most people about at this moment. Okay, going back to this, right? So what type of activities you do for user growing? Whenever you're building this startup, this idea, you build your first version of your products, and you need to always keep in mind, what I have to do for my innovators,
Mhm.
what I have to do for my early adopters, and what I have to do for my early majority, right? So we have a couple of ideas here, right? For innovators, we interview them, and interview is kind of like the key thing here to validate why they're using the product, right? If you're using this new face cream, why you're using it, why are you using a new product and not something else, what are your alternatives, right? Why are you using mine and not using something else? Is people who buys the cream and are actually using it, how often are you using it, and get our feedback about that and take action, right? For your early adopters, again, people who are like between switching solutions, the good thing, one of the key things about, engaging into your product is offer like rewards, right? Like allow them to participate in your process, giving them like free shirts, like putting in beta programs, highlighting in your community saying like, hey, these guys is helping me, just because those type of recognition is also valuable for people, right?
Right.
Learn about what other things they use to solve their problem. Track behavior, track, what they're using, and incentivize their feedback. Rewards, gift cards, again, anything that is there. When you're building also this, again, you need to start like preparing for your early majority. Again, the early majority is a big brands game. So you need to understand that that's where branding comes into place, right? Positioning and branding. For this, probably an expert on marketing would help us, but start to understanding what are your marketing segments, what type of competitors you have out there, how to reach competitors, interview customer about why they think other brands are right for their solution. Like, if you're building a new car, you probably want to know why the users of Honda, Chrysler, Toyota, why they're using their cars and prefer to use their cars over something else, right? Again, it's basically going into surveys, talking to people, and understanding how is the best way to build your product, right? Okay, so we jump into the third part about MVP development. So we have been taking clues into coming here. This is specifically to software products, and I'm gonna also walk you at the end through some examples about this. But again, based on our experience of building software products, this is the way that we don't only apply this for building our products with our customers, but this is the way that we preach and suggest to people, right?
Actually, I have to say something. All that you were talking about right now takes me back to my early days in advertising and marketing with all the multinational companies. We did exactly that for every product, or whether it was established, whether they were the Lever Brothers, they were Procter and Gamble or Philips, all those products which I used to handle back when, and in Manhattan and in Bombay. That's the process every advertising and marketing company uses for the solid product. So it's the same concept being used now for software.
Yeah, right. And also on a different scale, right?
Right.
Again, you need to understand your customers. You need to understand who are you targeting, because one of the key things that I think it was mentioned in one of the slides is that, for example, something that the early adopters also really care about is customer support, right? And same thing will happen with any other thing that you're using right now, right? If I'm an early adopter in the streaming area, right, and I choose to use another application like, I don't know, like Amazon Videos or Apple TV, and I whenever I'm going there the first time and the system crashes and I know how to use this thing, I'm just gonna drop it and I'm gonna go back to what I'm using, right? That's not the case for innovators. Innovators, people who are like early adopters. I'm an early adopter in this thing that I was telling you for sleeping better. I'm also an early adopter into phones, in computers. So I know that if I, like download the latest version for my computer, the software for my computer, I know they may crash, but I don't care, right? I know that I don't care because that's my mentality for adopting this product, right? So you need to understand pretty well what you're targeting, where your segments and in which stage they are, to be able to build the proper activities, the proper support for your product to be able to move forward. Cool. So back to product development part, right? The key things about MVP development, and refreshing a little bit the concept of MVP. Remember, that's the minimum valuable product. That's the small iteration that you need to do. That's your really small next baby step to be able to provide more value to your customers, right? Okay, so again, focus on your highest valuable market segment only. Usually when you're building a startup solution, a software solution, you have like 1, 2, or 3 customer segments, right? Like 1, 2, or 3 people that are different markets that you want to target. what we suggest, like all the time, when you're building a new product, just take your biggest market or your most important market segment and focus on that. And being able to identify what's the most valuable thing for that market is like super important to be able to decide what you're going to build next, right? If you're seeing a lot of people playing tennis in the tennis court and they want to share pictures and they want to be able to share the scores, you know those people, you know what they need, you know what they want. Focus on the tennis players around the court and build them one thing that they will desire the most, whether it's sharing pictures, whether it's sharing like scores, or whether it's being able to post like a tournament for playing next week. Focus on that, build that small thing, and then go from there, right?
Mhm.
Product market fit for startups has to be composed primarily by one revenue stream, right? So again, when you're trying to become a business from being in a startup, you need to realize that 100% of the time when you're building a new product, the main revenue stream, the main source of income comes from that high valuable piece that you build for your largest market segment, right? So a lot of people make the mistakes of thinking about, hey, we can add this for these guys too, and maybe we can add this for these other guys. That's the kind of thinking that, you know, it could get you broke if you do it like too soon. Of course, when you start building the company, eventually you're going to start seeing like more revenue streams, more opportunities that you can cover. But that's not your focus on early stages. Your focus on early stages, again, you go with a sniper approach. I need one revenue stream. I need one market segment. I need one solution that is actually effective, it works, and then we build around that. Focus, 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 the same thing that we have been speaking. Develop your most valuable feature first. Your value proposition is what is gonna take your innovators. Remember, whatever you're building first, the first users that are gonna use your products are gonna be innovators. Innovators don't care about many features. They don't care if you're building a social network. They don't care if you have like video calls, right? Because they can go to Zoom and get video calls. They want their problem to be solved, right? They are changing, they're testing new things because they are seeking for solutions that they don't already have.
Is a pain point.
Yeah, the pain point. Like your value proposition needs to go directly into the pain point of your main market segment. Focus also on mitigating risky assumptions. This means that, and this is kind of like super important too for technology, right? Not only for software. And you know, there is also a good example with the Tesla guys, right? With the car company. The biggest challenge that the Tesla company had was to be able to build batteries that last enough, and they could be charged and they could be sold also in a reasonable amount of time. So what they did
And money.
first, yeah, and what they did first was actually researching and developing a new type of batteries, right? Before actually building a car, think about this. Think about your solution being building a car, right? And you say like, what's the biggest problem that we have about building a car, an electric car? Well, there is no battery on the market to support an electric car, right? Okay, so let's build that first, because if we're not able to build it, then the whole idea is not going to work, right? So that's what it means, mitigating your risky assumptions. Go with the risky things first, because you know those are the ones that usually break a business, right?
And you have to think as a consumer rather than from the other side. Don't always think like a builder, but think of yourself as a consumer.
Oh yeah, builders and engineers, we are the worst product people, right? And again, back into one of the first slides that I show you, that lack of a system is not only a problem because there is not enough help for entrepreneurs out there. It's also because entrepreneurs, some of them, they are not used to seeking for help, right? So when you're an engineer or when you're a builder, sometimes you think that if you can build it, you know, it's gonna work and that's all you need. Many times you need product focused people, people who thinks about consumers, people who think about your market, You know, people who thinks about how things looks like, how things are going to be presented, how things are going to be communicated, and that's like super important too. Make sure that when you're building MVPs and you're building your solutions, make sure that your milestones, your business milestones, and your software milestones and your product milestones are visible to everyone, right? And I think that this also goes into what you just said, right? You cannot manage everything as an engineer. You need to have like opinions, like from business people, from marketing, from sales, from consumers, to be able to add enough value and to be able to have like a good multidisciplinary process there to be able to build something really good. How we do MVP development, how the process is, again, we analyze and prioritize. You know, we take the data from the consumers, from the problem, from the solution. We choose one assumption. We identify how this is adding value to the solution that we're building, and then we actually build it. And then we repeat again. We analyze again, prioritize, choose one, validate that this adds value to the product, and then we go ahead and build it. So this is kind of like how your MVP should be developing your product, right? Think about your orange bars as your customer segments, right? Your market segments, and see how you're growing as you start adding features to your MVP. That is the dark blue that we have at the right? So this is how you should be working. Every time that you add a feature to your product, to your MVP, 1, 2, or 4, or 5, or 6, or 10, you know, any number that are necessary, you should be increasing the value that you're providing to your customer segments, right? So anything that you add to your application, to your software, it needs to be directly related to adding value. And this, again, this is super important. You don't know how many times, and it happened to me like early this year, right? I made these founders who want to do like a social media app for connecting people, right? And they present to me with this idea about having chats, having like video calls, messaging, calling, and I said like, wait a minute. The problem that you're solving is how to connect these two types of specific people, right? So why are we looking into chats, video calls, conference? Because these are the things that you already have solution for. Like if you have Google Meets, if you have Zoom, if you have Microsoft Teams, Slack, people are already solving this problem. So what we need to do is let's build first that solution about connecting those two type of guys. And then we sit down again and think about, do we really need a chat? Do we really need video calls? Do we really need conferencing? Do we really need to have like a public profile to show to people, right? Because we don't know. And we're not gonna invest 6 months of building all those stuff to then realize that no one wants that, right? So again, this is how things should be looking, right? How do you measure value? How do you know that this column of the middle is increasing? Well, it really depends of your product specifically, right? It could be daily active users if you're looking for a lot of traffic. It could be subscriptions. It could be purchases. This is more like for e-commerce. It could be like really interaction metrics, like if it's a social network, likes, loves, claps, like things like I'm proud. These are the things that you usually define with a growth manager and with a business coach. So keep this in mind to be able to understand what value means for you.
Right.
Okay, so finally we get to some examples. So I have like 1 or 2 examples that I want to show you about how we have done this in the past successfully. Again, we saw the first one, but I'm going to show you some other ones. So before this, we were good with questions, right?
I think we are good. We are good because I think we kind of explained things as we were going along. So it's coming along very well. Thanks. So let's go into your examples.
Cool. Great. Okay, so this is one of the products that we have built recently. We actually still building it. We are kind of like for the version 6 or 7 already, right? And
Wow. How long are you working on this one?
this has been for almost 2 years now.
Okay.
And this is kind of like, I think that this is kind of like the greatest example that we have, right? This is a platform for being able to provide service and interviews to teachers in public school systems, right? It's called My Voice because it means, you know, what the teacher is trying to communicate. So regarding that, so one of the key things about taking away from this is that when we start like designing this application back in 2019, early 2019, you know, everything is about like mobile apps now, right? And we thought about like, hey, let's build an app for the teachers. Let's build something that they can use in their phones. And it turns out that before we build it, everybody suggested like, hey, before we build it, let's bring a couple of teachers, show them the prototype, and let's see what they think, right? It turns out that no one, at least for early 2019, none of the teachers, they use like mobile apps. Everybody within the school classes, they use computers, right? They use desktop computers. And that's what normally a normal teacher, you know, like 90% of the time they use, just because that's what they used to, that's the generation. And we realized at the moment that if we build a mobile application, we will like fail horribly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of like had to do some a couple of pivots into a mobile application, right? Into a desktop application.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons why this is like a super interesting case too is because the questions that they do to the teachers here are like within certain contexts, right? About, you know, how they perceive certain things on the schools, right? So we started like with some drivers and some indicators to be able to measure this. And now the application has grown like in so many different stages that they use it right now for being able to identify how COVID is affecting the different areas within the school, right? How the COVID is affecting like education, how their teachers are feeling, how the students are feeling. And it has grown like really cool because now it's one of our biggest you know, products in the market right now. And also like 6 months from now, since 6 months ago, kind of like in May, they were acquired by a larger company. So we're still managing to be able to achieve that and to stay with them working for creating an even larger product. This is kind of like some of the screen and how it looks like. Super good. Now it
So these
supports
were
like,
designed all by Cobuild?
yeah, this is actually are actually screens about the product itself. I show you about this. I explained you a little bit about this at the beginning, right? About this wellness application and how it evolved from, you know, a piece of paper and a model that they have in a PDF into actually a mobile application that now they use like every day, right? For managing their goals and what they want to build. This is another example about an introductions application. And this is kind of like the first version about how to, and I think I always think about you, Rita, about this when we're working on this product, right? How you introduce someone to another person that it might be able to help you, or it might be interested in your services, or just because, you know, you think that they should meet, right? And we built a couple of versions already, and we're kind of like using that Instagram story feature where you record actually like a video message, and I can say like, hey Rita, I think that you should meet with, I don't know, with this guy. You know, he had like great skills and this and this. I know that you are missing this stuff. You know, make sure to connect. And you know, that
So
has
how
grown
does this
also.
help us? These are introductions, okay?
Yep. Yeah, basically when you meet someone and you think that someone else could be helpful for them, or they want to meet, you just create like an introduction, like, hey,
So
Rita,
are
I
you,
want
are
to
you
introduce you.
so are you saying that I'm Mama in Mark?
The what?
Inmark is my company, so that and our business is to actually connect bright minds and innovative people and passionate people all over the world. So,
Yeah, like something
so give
similar.
the introductions to people so that they can work together and create something great.
Right, like yeah, just like that, right? And this is kind of like also a good example because this was a sketch that we have at the beginning, that the founders have at the beginning, and now we were able to translate within 2 versions. We were able to translate in something a little bit more powerful, right? Yeah, a couple of additional examples. Adding a couple of links here. I'll make sure to send you the presentation. If you want to have it. Some key takeaways just for doing some closing remarks and summarizing. Do's and don'ts from MVP. First, make sure to always reduce your scope. The or recommended amount of time for you to be able to build a feature or to build a version of your application is between 1 and 3 months. Always the less is better. Make sure that you don't engage into long development cycles. You don't want to build something in 6 months, in 12 months, in 2 years. That's just not the way to work. Number 2, budget for as much features as you think it will satisfy your business milestones. So if you want to raise money, if you want to raise capital, make sure that you have enough resources to fulfill your business milestones. Normally your business milestones are around like amount of users, amount of sales and subscriptions, and you need usually the help of a coach of a business development, maybe like a technical person who tells you like, hey, we need to go all the way through here to be able to achieve your business goals, right? Make sure you don't spend all your money on software development. Make sure that you have enough resources to do marketing, to do sales, to be able to hire a coach, to be able to help you, understand better your customers and commercialize your products. Number 3, once you choose what to build, make sure to do some validation and being able to understand why what you choose is the right thing to build right now. Build what you don't ever build what you think that needs to be built. Make sure to always validate, right? Number 4, challenge every feature that you think that you need to have. Again, everything is an assumption until someone proves that it's not. And what you don't have to do, acknowledge that your best bet are innovators and early adopters, right?
So, in Cobuild, what do you think is the right number to test out your product?
The right number, like in terms of
like a minimum number, or what's your average number of people for feedback?
that really depends on what type of products you have. We're mostly aiming right now B2B products, and usually with 1 or 2 companies that are able to tell you like, yeah, this is the right thing that we need, is usually enough. When you're building a B2C product, like a consumer product, it's a little bit harder, right? Because you are able, it also depends how many resources you count, right? Because doing user research, it usually take a lot of time and also effort, right? I will say that you maybe have to take like a 2 or 3% of the full addressable market that you have at the moment, right? So if you're targeting like 1,000 people, make sure that you have at least 20 or 30 to get you some feedback, to be able to understand if what you're building is the right thing to do.
So do you go by a percentage of your population, or how do you determine the number? And also, or is it like a budget as well?
No, well, you can do 2 approaches, right? For being able to get your addressable market, you need to be realistic in the sense, let's say that you're building this tennis social network, right? And your first milestones are getting all the people who are playing tennis in Miami, right? but that's only your goal once you start deploying resources into marketing and sales, right? Before you get to that marker, you need to understand that your first milestone needs to be like, the people of Wynwood or the people in downtown Miami or 10 courts on Brickell, right? So from that whole universe, you at least need to pick like something around 5% to be able to go to them and try to make a sale, right? Try to manually make a sale and say like, I don't know, if you're charging for the application, this is the application, this is what it works. Are you able to buy it or not, right? So once you achieve that 5% into positive feedback, then you can start like moving to the next stage.
So say something like a DoorDash, that's an app. How would you go about building DoorDash if it came to your door?
Well, first we will need
Or
to
any other product like that.
Yeah, let's go with the DoorDash example, right? The first thing that we will have to understand is what makes you different than DoorDash. Are you targeting the same market, right? Or you're trying to provide like a better solution for a niche market, right? So if that's the case, that I think that it should be, just because that market about home delivery is like super saturated, and definitely you need to go niche. I will say like, what's the minimal problem that you're solving for that specific niche, right? It's in actually delivering the product. It's actually delivering the product better, delivering the product faster, delivering the product in a different package, delivering the product with a different type of thing. If you are able to identify that, that's the first thing that we need to build in the whole service chain, right?
But how many differentiating factors you want to take into consideration? Because if DoorDash is so popular and you just have one more feature, that means you're mostly, the same Me Too product, but you have only one extra product, or dimension, which might be appealing to maybe, say like someone has nut allergy and you take care of that, or maybe someone has something else, like salt or sugar or something. So do you want to take a few more just in case DoorDash steals your idea and says, oh my God, that little guy has come up with that just one more feature. And for DoorDash being a big giant, they now bigger than the little guy, starting out. How would you advise your client on that feature?
Yeah, I think this is more about experience, right? I think that I'll say that if your feature is big enough or you have some sort of industry leverage, there is a common case from some friends that are building like overnight. They deliver like overnight, and also they deliver things that are only like regulated, like alcohol and cigarettes, right?
Okay. Okay.
So for them, they have been working in this industry like for a lot of years. They have trucks all over Miami, right? So they're building kind of like a DoorDash competitor for that specific type of products. So in
That's a
that
good
case,
example.
yes, in that case, I will say like, yes, go ahead, because they have already infrastructure for it. They have some industry leverage. They have something that it will be like really difficult for DoorDash to achieve unless they buy a company that already does that. And that's a perfectly good approach, right? I think that one of the business goals that my friends should have is to try to drive their brand into being acquired by a company like DoorDash.
Mhm.
Because a bigger, that's what happens here, right? A bigger company
Right.
acquire a smaller company just
Right.
because they're targeting like a niche market that they are not able to get really easy, right? So I'm sure that they're going to be successful on that. They're going to get a lot of money from that acquisition, and that seems like enough differentiator to build it. Now, if you tell me that you're going to build a DoorDash, but instead of delivering with cars, you're going to deliver with scooters, but that's really hard, right? Because DoorDash can do that like that, and can you just bust your business model like really, really fast?
Actually, in India, they are actually delivering with scooters, because I know in Bombay, I have a friend who's become an entrepreneur, and he was a music manager of a mega star like someone like Beyonce. And in the free times when the singer was not doing his gig around the world, he sat down and he started this thing. And they have electric motorcycles, and they deliver very fast because of the traffic. They can go in and out, and of the cars and people and whatever. So they're much faster, and they have a green color scooter. So everyone knows a green color scooter coming along. It is a certain lime green kind of thing, which is interesting because it stands out in the crowd. And I believe they're doing very well.
Yeah, I mean, geography might be a differentiator for, I think, the most of the businesses. And I
Mhm.
think that that totally makes sense. If you come to me and say that you want to be like a DoorDash for, maybe like Colombia or Argentina or a different country
Mhm.
where DoorDash or Uber Eats doesn't have a presence yet, I will say like, yes, definitely it's a good idea. Let's go ahead, because when those big companies will start looking into going to those markets, I'm pretty sure they're going to think first into acquiring a solution that is already there and has already built the networks and all the channels, then actually start like competing with someone who's already been positioned there.
Actually, very true. Actually, we had a very good success story with even Gas Ninja. I don't know if you remember them. I had hosted them a long time ago when I was with Startup Grind, and Jason Guevara and we had Brandon Timninsky, and he was a young guy, where they had a truck that would go and fill up gas into your car in your parking lot. And it was something they had in the West Coast, but they adapted it to the East Coast and did a very good job. And very different. Only two people operated it, and they made a killing. So I think how you adapt, and you are international. I'm international. You go back from to South America, I'm sure, for holidays and things. I think now the world, especially in this pandemic situation that we're all locked down, what do you see has happened with your business? Has it suffered, or you think you have pivoted, and have you adjusted to what is going on? Because it may be a little bit longer than even with the vaccines coming out maybe next month. What is your opinion, and what have you done, and how have you survived this?
Well, we took very big hits during the pandemic at the start of the year, because we had like half of our customers were like the hospitality industry, and all those were like shut down, and we went down with them immediately. Lucky for us, we had a couple of big clients who stuck with us, and we were able to pick it up like real fast. I think that definitely COVID brought some big changes into the adoption of technology, right? Like we were expecting like things like real estate or like video conference to be like really mainstream like for the next year or maybe the next 5 years. And now this is kind of like an overtaking of technology everywhere, right? Now everybody gets together like in video calls. Now people who are like buying houses and going into things like Airbnb, everything is being done like online on app. Every app out there that is for real estate now, they have like virtual tours, videos that you can see online about the apartments. And I think that that's just one example. I'm pretty sure that many industry changes the same, right?
Yes, actually, I had many plans from February onwards to have things. I went to India, and I got a lot of partners there, and then I was a judge on a few international competitions on pitching and things. Met a lot of VCs, a lot of people, and we were thinking of having events over here during summer. We were going to have people come over from countries into America, and from America going to India as well. And but everything changed. And first it was like, okay, what am I going to do now? But then once I got onto Zoom and meetings and things, I realized I had much more time actually build my partnerships and get into more in-depth conversations, and even the overseas calls, because it was not just America, it was all over. So it's like everyone's online. And then if you are surfing and you are interested in a certain industry, I think I found excellent partners across the world now. And being this one being the GEW 2020 week, I'm partnering with GEN, which is the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And I was a judge with them for all the competitions they were having, right from the idea stage to the second stage to the finals. And I learned a new trick actually, and I learned how to do things online. Met a lot of people from everywhere in the world, and because of this Global Entrepreneurship Week, even now all this work that we're doing and being an organizer, we're finding entrepreneurs all around. And what I used to do locally before, like building Miami and Fort Lauderdale and South Florida, and for 5-6 years, I was like having events and trying to connect. You were part of my group. We were CTO founders together, and we had 2 more partners. And we saw the pain point of people not finding the right founders or not finding the CTOs. Someone who could develop their MVPs. So now that same concept of what I was doing and all my business partners that I was doing, I think it was more difficult for me. I think with the pandemic, actually, it became better for me because it's become transparent, and now communication is so much easier. Like you and I never talked on Zoom before. We never had a presentation together. We had a presentation where for CTO founders where I was taking part of something and I was registering and getting the people in. I had my part, then you had your part, and you did a similar presentation, but it was different. But I think this actually helps in growing as well, because I see that we did this whole presentation and I paid attention as much more because I know I don't have to jump into a car and run off to another meeting, or I'll be stuck in traffic, you know, because there it will be like, okay, we're done, let me go home. I have to, now we're already home, so we know, okay, this is something we can focus on. And if anyone needs me, I'm right there at home. In a way, there are those positive things as well. I know that hospitality and other things have taken a hit. I think, again, it's how you pivot, how you make the use of it. Like some of the hospitality actually have grown in this time. I went to the other day to a restaurant, he's a neighborhood guy, and he's also professor in hospitality management in a good college here. My family had to wait half an hour for him to give something which was promised like 15 minutes before, because he had so many deliveries going on and he had so many people coming in. It was amazing. So it all depends that some restaurants are not doing well, but this guy knows how to do it. And, it was a very busy night. And the next door neighbor, it was a diner, which was very good diner. They folded up. So I think it is how you also learn and to pivot and get it together. And maybe we are looking at new things. It's always, when we had the Industrial Revolution, we had the Information Revolution. This is another different kind of thing. Some things will be lost, some things will be gained.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we are kind of like definitely in a different environment. Now, having Zoom calls and being remote is normal, right? Probably like this time last year, I was thinking like, I want to grow the office. Where am I gonna get like a bigger office? And believe me, I don't think that I'm gonna get an office like in the next 12 months at least.
Well, I refused to get into an office because I was like, I'm comfortable doing my work from home because I can do it 24 hours.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
Okay, so again, what's the end game here? Getting your product market fit to be able to get enough value to people that it makes sense to build a business from it. And yeah, I mean, this is the end of my presentation. We can open it for questions. Any other comments?
Well, I think what we're doing now is we'll close over here. We have your contact over here, and people can always reach us. This is going to be posted also in YouTube and on Facebook and my website on Inmark. and also Gen Global. So it's not like lost. It's not a webinar that's we're closing it and it'll never be seen again. This was an excellent presentation, Angel, and I think this is going to be a very good one that we can refer to our business partners as well. And if I come across anyone that needs your kind of services, I know exactly what you do, and I think this is how entrepreneurship grows, and we all need to grow this way and support each other in this environment, rather than always looking at the big guys. I think the small guys can suffer, and they can rise higher by having global connections and local partnerships. And we don't have to always try to be emulating the West. I think Florida is an excellent place, but now we also have Latin America, Canada, North America, the entire state, as well as other countries in the world. So whoever, wherever is watching us, if you want to reach us, you know where we are. Our contact numbers are there. And Angel, I thank you so much for being a speaker tonight. And I think you took us step by step and made it really, you demystified this whole thing about how to build a product. And I think it's, people are scared and they don't know how to go about building an app, where to go, how much it's going to cost us. And, but then you said, take it small and then build on it.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, definitely thank you for the invitation. It's also my pleasure anytime. And yeah, that's my contact information. Whoever needs help, happy to assist.
Thank you so much.